Alrighty. Welcome back to the Red and Black Wrestling. And we have a very special edition of today's episode. We are predicting and going to be running down the upcoming CHSAA Sectional Dual Championships. The Dual Championships are going to be taking place this weekend at Monsignor Farrell High School. Monsignor Farrell is the returning CHSAA Sectional Champions, for those who may not remember from last year's tournament. They ran away with the tournament, the team tournament championship. Um, St. Francis and Iona did punch the most amount of individual champions to the state tournament, besting a few of Monsignor Farrell's athletes to get there. Um, Although Monsignor Farrell didn't, unfortunately, have one of themselves to go to the tournament. They themselves are an all-around very strong team. Um, Ranked currently number 10 in New York State. There are currently three teams that are ranked in the state that are going to be competing in this weekend's tournament. Those other two teams are going to be number 5 ranked Iona Prep and number 1 ranked St. Francis. St. Francis is also currently ranked number 32 in the country, which is awesome. Alrighty. So, what are a couple of things to keep an eye out for this weekend? Obviously, like I said, those three teams, right? Number 32 ranked in the country, St. Francis. They have a bunch of individual standouts on their team. If we're going to run through the lineup, you got the Winsman Bros that are a 1-2 combo down at lightweight from 103 and 110. If you haven't gotten to see, go check it out. We did release our individual rankings. Both of the Winsman brothers are number 1 at their individual respective weights. Like I said, 103 and 110 respectively. If we're gonna go ahead and go to 118, they have a returning New York State finalist in Tanner Catrabone, who is another stud on their lineup. 126, number 3 ranked Braden Neglia, who has been having a standout season. Number 132, number 1 ranked in New York State, Colin Edwards, who is already a multiple time CHSAA sectional champion. Alrighty. So, like I said, if we're going through the whole entire weights, they got hitters that are going weight after weight after weight. Alrighty. 157, Griffin LaPlante, ranked number 7 in the whole country. 165, Rory White, ranked number 1 in New York State. Zachary Caldwell, 190, ranked number 1 in New York State. Dominic Darch, ranked number 1 in the section at 215 pounds. William Wortcoetter, ranked in the state, returning CHSAA sectional champion, number 1 at 285 pounds. You got Max McCarthy, number 1 at 150 pounds. So like I said, St. Francis has multiple number 1s. They are going to be the team to be looking out for this weekend. And right next to them is going to be the Iona Prep Gales. I mean, do not keep them out of this conversation by any means necessary. At 165 pounds, they have an Eastern States Classic champion, alrighty, and George Johnson. He is someone who you are going to be keeping an eye out for this weekend. This guy puts on points on the board. So if you blink, there's a chance that the match may be over or that you might have missed something very exciting. All right. So anytime that Johnson's on the mat, make sure you do not miss that. So like I said, that is 165 pounds. Um, Also for Iona Prep, Bodus Kefales, who is a returning CHSAA sectional champion, down from 110 pounds. So a little bit lighter. So he did put on some weight, but he has been looking very dominant so far. So for those who may have concerns if he was adjusting in the weight class, he is adjusting very well. He is the number 2 ranked in the section, just right behind Colin Edwards. Like I said, he was the number 1 in the state. So to be right behind him is not a bad look at all. And that is actually a matchup that you are going to be wanting to look out for this weekend. There should be wrestling each other during the Iona Prep and St. Francis dual meet. As well as Monsignor Farrell has a couple of heavy hitters themselves. Like I said, they are the number 10 ranked team in New York State. They got Brennan Sprague, who is probably the talk of the Lions lineup. He just recently won the Donald Douglas Memorial Tournament, which is the new name for the Mayor's Cup tournament, for those who may not know from the New York City area. And he had to best a lot of really tough competition just to make the finals. And in his finals matchup, he had the number 8 ranked wrestler in New York State in Tristan Levin from Tonville. And he put on a clinic in that match, pretty much, I believe, putting up a major. I'm not sure if it was 13-2 or something like that, or 12-3, or it was a very dominant score that pretty much further catapulted Sprague onto the map. If he already wasn't on a lot of people's radar already, Sprague is someone who's taken out state champions in the freestyle competitions in the off season. He's competed in Estonia, so he has international competition under his belt. So this guy is someone who you also don't want to miss on the mat. Question is, are we going to see the match between him and Crawford this weekend at the Monsignor Farrell St. Anthony's dual meet? 50-50. They were supposed to wrestle last year during the dual championships, but they weren't lineup wise. They didn't meet. So the match was saved for the CHSAA sectional semifinals, where Crawford ended up winning. So it's a matter if he really needs the match for any seeding criteria. Chances are we're going to be looking at another situation where we're probably going to just see that match in the sectional finals, perhaps. Um, Depending on how this weekend goes, they are the top two ranked guys in the section at their weight. So unless it's necessary for them to wrestle, they probably won't risk the possible seeding criteria. Um, so that may be a match that we may not see this weekend, which I'm sad about. I was hoping we could kind of see that match multiple times. But we may not, which is okay. So we're gonna have to kind of see how that plans out. Maybe we do see it. Maybe they want to go ahead and just scrap it out. That would be awesome for us fans. But like I said, maybe there's a situation kind of like last year where we kind of just see that play out in the grand stage at the sectional championships, which also wouldn't complain about because that makes it ever more exciting. Um, Moving on, 165 pounds is stacked in general. Like we were talking about before, Rory White, who is the number one ranked in New York State, like I mentioned, at 165 pounds, is another wrestler who you're going to want to keep an eye out for this weekend. Chances are we're going to be seeing the match between him and George Johnson at the Iona Prep St. Francis dual meet. George Johnson is, like I said, the number two ranked in the section, so right behind him. And right behind him is Monsignor Farrell's Quinn Hunt, who, if you may not know, has been on an absolute tear this season so far. He had a very close loss to Chris Noka at the David Ironman Invitational Finals. It was a very close match, where it was pretty much one call or one swing that pretty much decided the entire match. But he bounced back with an Eastern States placement, taking out high seeds or high ranked competition from New York State. I believe he bested the number 2 or 4 ranked in New York State during that tournament, um, where he made it to the quarterfinals, I believe, or the semis. Um, so he's someone else that you're going to want to keep an eye out for this weekend. Chances are we see that match between him and Johnson, or him or even Rory White between the Monsignor Farrell St. Francis dual meet. So there's a chance that we see the number 1 and 3 go down this weekend. Overall, we have some very exciting duels that you would want to keep an eye out for. Like I mentioned, for the individual side, we released our rankings. We also released our team rankings as well. So we're gonna have the number 9 and number 10 Holy Trinity and St. Joseph by the Sea most likely go down this weekend. That's gonna be an exciting matchup. There's gonna be a bunch of potential and returning CHSAA sectional placers that are going to be wrestling during this match. So that's going to be an exciting one that you wouldn't want to miss. Monsignor Farrell and St. John the Baptist is another one that's going to go down this weekend that you're not going to want to miss at all. This match has been a dual meet that has delivered every year that this has gone during this tournament. Um, Last year or the year before, it was pretty much a one match dual meet that saw Farrell winning by a point, if I'm not mistaken. Um, St. John the Baptist always comes out swinging during this dual meet championships. So this is, like I said, no doubt one that you're going to want to keep your eyes out on. Sticking with the Lions versus the Firebirds, Farrell versus Kellenberg. This is an exciting dual meet, like I said, that you're not going to want to miss. Pretty much keep your eyes glued open this entire weekend. Last year during the dual championships, Farrell and Kellenberg actually went to criteria. For those who don't know what that means that the dual meet score was actually tied by the completion of the dual meet. It was a 44-44 score, if I'm not mistaken, which saw Farrell winning on criteria. I believe it was due to a team point or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. That was of the criteria that I believe decided the dual meet in favor of Farrell. So this weekend, the duel probably goes down completely differently, but nonetheless, one that's very exciting that you want to keep your eyes out on. Also, St. Joe's Collegiate and St. Anthony's. We got the number 6 and number 7 going down this weekend as well. We got Upstate and Long Island doing battle. That's going to be another exciting one you wouldn't want to miss. From New York City and Long Island, Chaminade and Iona is typically a dual meet that's very exciting. Has a bunch of very exciting individual matchups. We're going to have Brendan Catambang from Chaminade, who's the number 1 ranked at 144. So he's an exciting wrestler who is looking to be in top-notch shape. I mean, like I said, he's been doing very well this season. So he's the number 1 ranked at 144, and he's someone that you're going to want to see when he hits the mat because he's going to be putting points on that board in very exciting ways. Another dual meet sticking with the Flyers. Flyers versus the Lions. That is another exciting matchup. Particularly, we're looking at 103 between Caden Noya and Sebastian Cantararo. Sebastian has been having an outstanding run so far. He recently placed at the Eastern States Classic. Um, Caden Noya was recently the number 1 ranked between Cantararo's placement and Winsman's recent successes. We're looking at potential 1, 2, and 3 matchups going down this weekend to ultimately decide that seeding criteria come February. Also, we're going to be looking at potentially the finals matchup. And I say potentially because, like I said, there's a lot of heavy hitters in this tournament this weekend. So there is a chance we could potentially see a dual meet upset. So we're saying the potential finals, our red and black call for the finals of the dual meet championships is going to be between St. Francis and Iona Prep. We think that it'll probably be Farrell taking 3rd place. Right behind them is going to be Kellenberg. Um, we think that the Red Raiders are going to come out on top this weekend with the Gales finishing runner up. But this dual meet, like I said, is one you're going to want to keep an eye out for because, like I said, we might see potential 1 and 2 matchups go down this weekend. Like I said, specifically at 165, 132, especially, and a couple of those other weights. Um, Between Farrell and Red Raiders, St. Francis. There's a 1 and 2 matchup up at heavyweight that people may be missing out on. Between William Wortcoetter and AJ Lombardi. That's an exciting matchup that you may not want to miss as well. So, like I said, all around, there are very exciting matches that are going to be taking place. And like I said, 4 mats that are going to be going on in the Farrell gym. So it's going to be pretty easy to kind of watch everything simultaneously. Farrell does a very good job with their layout and organizing their events. I go there all the time, so we're looking forward to being there. Unfortunately, we'll be missing out during the first day. We will be having coverage though, so don't you worry too much. Um, but we will be there to fully cover the second day in person. So you guys were lucky enough to miss out on me the first day in my ugly face, but not too lucky because I'll be there day 2. Um, but like I said, we'll be there in person to cover the championships and go over all the exciting matchups that are going to be going down. We also posted on our Instagram the round by round matchups for this weekend. Wrestling is expected to start at 9 a.m. on Saturday and about 9:30 on Sunday. Weigh-ins are going to be anywhere between 7 to 8:30 between those 2 days, with the coaches meeting taking place pretty much right after. All in all, the CHSAA Dual Meet Championships this weekend is one that you're not going to want to miss. We're going to try our best to broadcast day 2, like I said, because we're going to be missing out on day 1. Unfortunately, there may not be a broadcast that day. But day 2, we're going to be looking at going ahead and doing that for you guys. So stay tuned and keep an eye out on your social media on our Instagram. That's where we'll most likely post that update. So like I said, for the broadcast, it'll most likely be on day 2. So stay tuned for that. Um, and like I said, you're definitely not going to want to miss anything going down. We're going to be trying to provide as much of a live update as we can. for you at home viewers. Um, and we'll try and record the more high profile matches that might be going down this weekend if we do see them. Like I said, for seating opportunities, we may not see some of these matches. Like I said, we have the 1-3, the 1-5 and 10 ranked team in New York State competing this weekend. So all formats going down simultaneously. You're going to be seeing a lot of exciting wrestling. So, like I said, on our socials, go ahead and make sure that you keep that phone glued to your pocket. So we'll go ahead and keep you with your live coverage all weekend. Make sure that you keep that notification bell on for your YouTube. That way, when we go ahead and push out our content for you guys, that it'll alert you at home that we're broadcasting and that those matches are posted on there, so you don't miss them. And if you have any other questions, do not hesitate to reach out to us directly on any of our social media platforms, whether that's Facebook, Instagram, um, X, or Twitter, anything like that. We're pretty much active on it as best as we can throughout the day. So if anyone does have any questions at home, do not hesitate to reach out to us. We will go ahead and try to provide you with the most accurate information possible. Alrighty. So to summarize all of our talking points from today, one, like I said, 103, 110, 165, um, even 190 are all matches, are all weights that you don't want to be missing out on this weekend when you're watching these matches. So anytime that you're watching, if you're able to notice that these weight classes are coming up, make sure you're watching them because you're going to be seeing some very exciting wrestling. Like I said, some of those exciting dual meets to keep an eye out for. We're going to be throwing it back to that Holy Trinity, St. Joseph by the Sea, um, Monsignor Farrell, St. John the Baptist in Kellenberg, St. Joe's Collegiate, St. Anthony's, and then St. Francis and Iona Prep. Our RB picked, like I said before, for our CHSAA Dual Meet Championship placements. We believe that the St. Francis Red Raiders are going to be coming out on top this weekend in first place. Um, we're thinking runner-ups are going to be Iona Prep Gales, with the bronze finishing being from Monsignor Farrell. Like I said, that'll be closing out today's show. If you have any questions or concerns, don't hesitate to reach out to us. God bless, and we'll see you this weekend. Bye bye.